Washington might not need the luck of the Irish to pull on a top 20 class, but it might help.
You are Locked On Huskies, your daily podcast on the Washington Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into another edition of the Locked On Huskies podcast. I'm Tomashoff. That's Lars Hanson. He writes for Inside the Huskies of Fan Nation Sports Illustrated. I'm the site editor over with Huskies Wire. Thank you for making this your first watch or first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs help find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockdowncollege. Terms and conditions apply. So, Lars, as we record this on this wonderful St. Patrick's Day, we were trying to, discuss a little bit of how can we work some luck in there, something fun. And as I sit here in my Seattle Sonics jersey, love this one, bring them back. But as we discussed all that, we kind of came up with, all right, top 5 recruits that, some of them might need a little luck to help bring them in, but Washington wants to bring in a top 20 recruiting class. We know that. So we each came up with a list of 5 guys who we think need to be on that list. So do you want to kick us off with your number 5?
Yeah, so number 5, we're going to go to an offensive lineman because, again, we already talked about where does this class truly need to be built up? It's in the trenches, right? Everything starts in the trenches.
Absolutely.
You have Jake Flores already in the boat. It's a good kind of versatile piece, but the one for me that would kind of secure the class together, really tie everything together, is going to be Jackson Lloyd out of Carmel, California. The 4-star offensive tackle. I believe, what is he, about 6'7", 290, 300 pounds, give or take. Big tackle. Almost think of like a similar Caleb McGarry size, but maybe a little bit less stiff, but could play on the left or right side either way. But I think getting kind of that quintessential 4-star offensive lineman is something that has to happen in this class. It's kind of a true anchor. And I think when you look at the guys that they have offered and their projectability, I think he fits kind of exactly what Brendan Carroll's looking for.
Absolutely. So at number 5 for me, I went wide receiver because this is a class where you're going to probably need to bring in at least 3 receivers. So I felt that I had to put one in at some point where I've got an offensive lineman ranked a little bit higher. And for me, I went with Chris Lawson, who at Archbishop Reardon in San Francisco, where I really like what he brings to the table as a prospect. And it's somebody who was interested during during Kalen DeBoer's tenure and has carried that over with Jedd Fisch, Kevin Cummings, and the new staff. He recently set up his official visit and is going to be visiting on that May 31st weekend, which has turned into just such a massive recruiting weekend for this staff. So I really wanted to make sure that I found a place to get him in there on the list because, I'm sure we'll talk about some of the other guys on there, whether it be Cooper Perry, another 4-star, Phillip Bell. There are a couple other guys where you just look around this class and you say, all right, they have a chance with so many of these top receivers. You want to find a way to bring in 2, maybe even 3. And it's a very important need. I wrote about it a little bit over on Huskies Wire, but there are other needs in this class that I think are going to be way more important. So that's why I wanted to make sure Lawson, who's honestly one of my 3 or 4 favorite players to watch in this class on film, is, a little bit lower on this list, but I just want to stress the importance of the position and still getting a guy like that. And in my opinion, him specifically in the boat.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's kind of almost, so for me, the way that I broke down mine was kind of where do you want to see the positions go? So I put Phillip Bell at number 4, right? Another 4-star receiver from Mission Viejo, California. Basically, it's a matter of you want to get at least one of your top 3 wide receiver targets: Chris Lawson, Phillip Bell, Derek Meadows, right? Kind of one of those 3 at least has to be. Ideally, you can get 2. Nothing is stopping you from getting 2. But I think if you and I are both talking and thinking, if you get one of those 3, you're happy, and then you can get a Cooper Perry, and then you fill in the 3rd, right? Then that's a pretty solid receiver class, especially with what you already have on the roster and coming in. When you look at Phillip Bell, especially on the West Coast, Mission Viejo, and then it's part of my rationale for having him on the list number 4 is who's going to be probably a number 2 or 1, maybe 3, but a teammate of his. And so I think it's a matter of keeping the West Coast kids on the West Coast and then also getting those guys to play together. I mean, why not, right? I mean, that's kind of the target goal here, right? If you can go to, and we've actually kind of seen that from Jedd Fisch's staff where They will offer multiple kids at one high school. Whether they get all of them or not, probably not. But it's saying, hey, you know what, we like this school, so no matter who we get here, we're okay taking whoever we get because we know the level of competition in this league and at the school is second to none.
Right. And a good example of that is what Adam Muhammad from Apollo High School in Glendale, Washington's running back commit, the 2024 class, his right guard and probably will end up playing center at Washington, Michael Watkins, who I know you and I both really like. They offered him. They offered their left tackle as well, who stayed at Arizona. But that's a really good point. For me at number 4, I have John Mills, 3-star offensive tackle from St. Ignatius College Prep, also in the Bay Area. And he's somebody who I like his film. I think he can play tackle or guard. And it's really silly to say this because it just feels like a bit of a cliche, but he's ranked as a 3-star, but he's got a 4-star offer list. Florida, Michigan, Texas, they're all on his list. And he's somebody who, you know, when you look at the ranking, there are certain people who, you know, don't necessarily follow recruiting super deep, which is not a problem, but they'll look at that and they'll say, oh, another 3-star. All right, let's see what happens with that. No, but when you go and you watch his film and you look at all the other schools who are interested in, much like when you referenced Jake Flores a little bit earlier, that you just say, oh, okay, yeah, if all these other schools are super interested in him, getting his commitment would obviously be a really big piece of that.
Exactly. I think especially when you look at the state of California, so there's certain states, right? California, Texas, Florida, Alabama, maybe some schools on the East Coast where you can just say, hey, he's a 3-star. But it's like, yeah, but the level of competition, you know what you're getting versus, and again, this is no disrespect, right? But there's sometimes, let's say you take a 3-star from Idaho or from Washington or from Utah. Utah is kind of the rising state there. So, but, you know, my point being, maybe the level of talent isn't always what it looks up to be when you look at the ranking. So I'd rather take a lower ranked guy that has more not higher upside, but just more experience against better competition because you can look great against nobodies. I mean, that's one thing, right? You can block. I mean, if I'm the opposing edge rusher against, you know, John Mills, it's like, okay, well, it's not a great comp, but if it's going up against guys in the Trinity League and things like that, okay, that's a serious level of competition. I'm not saying it's John Mills in this case, but I'm just saying that's why coaches would rather say, hey, we're going to go to California, we're going to go to this state, because it's just proven over the years. You can look at the NFL, where does the talent come from? And so for me, then that kind of gets back into, do you want me to go to my number 3 or do we want to?
Yeah, go to your number 3, please.
So for number 3, we go back to the defensive lineman, offensive lineman. You're gonna have to find a lineman in there somewhere. The question for me is gonna be who. There's obviously guys where you would want to get, right? There's guys that no doubt, you know, that's kind of the goal. For me, I would say, again, this is going top 5 in terms of if you could get them, if you could pull this, it's going to be Josiah Hammond, right? I know I got you a lot, okay. Right? Where it's because it's not on the West. Because
I'm sorry to cut you off. I just want to say I'm shocked you have him this high. I really like this. I think this is fantastic. I didn't think he was going to make your top 5. That's awesome.
But again, it's back to what I said initially, where it's where's the positional need. Now, again, you have to look and then look at the talent and then look at where is that talent. You're probably not pulling the Auburn commit. You're probably not being out a couple of schools from some other. Now, you could get the kid from Folsom, right? You could do all that, right? But Josiah Hammond is another one to me where it's, okay, if you don't get X or if you don't get Y, get Z. And Josiah Hammond is kind of the happy medium in the middle. Now, again, it's going to be a stiff competition, but I do think that would be a solid get in terms of if that's what you're going for with the class. That's still a decent take.
I agree with you there, but I disagree with you on the if you don't get. I think that they've really prioritized him. I think that he's kind of become all right, we really like this guy. We know we can't get X, Y, and Z with some of these other guys. But in knowing that Josiah Hammond was already kind of a top prospect where he's a bit of a diamond in the rough. And then the more you look at him, the more you dive into what this coaching staff sees in him, the more you get it. And we'll get to my number 3 right after the break. Right after we talk about our friends over at Nissan, this week's March Madness Bracket Highlight is brought to you by our friends at Nissan. Each week we're picking one team that stands out, a team that pushed it further than the rest. Just like any of the new 2024 Nissan SUVs, these guys were able to take it to the next level. The Tennessee Volunteers can only be described as a pathfinder. They've been thrilling to watch and have really created a lane for themselves after claiming the top spot in the SEC. With Player of the Year candidate Dalton Knecht has carried the Vols all this season and has made them a team to watch in March. You can take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. And you can do all that at shop.nissanusa.com. We also got to give a shout out to our good friends over at Fire TV, because Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournament, you're going to want to have a Fire TV. Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. And hey, that includes all of us at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels lets you dive into all of the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on all the latest in the worlds of sports, from March Madness to the NBA, to the MLB, and so much more. And not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos as well. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV, you should. Trust me on this. Go to Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. So, Lars, I'm glad you went with Josiah Hammond at number 3, because I also have a defensive tackle at number 3, but it's somebody we've talked about on this show ad nauseum, and we're going to do it again. And that's Josiah Sharma. He keeps moving all around. You know, it's 4-star one week, a 3-star the next. Right now, he's a 3-star defensive tackle, according to 247 Sports. And he recently picked up an offer from the Georgia Bulldogs, because one thing we talked about when we talked about Josiah Sharma was how hard it's going to be to pull him in. And he keeps getting these SEC offers. We saw Alabama obviously offer him really early on. Oklahoma extended an offer to him. I know they're not SEC, but Miami did as well. So he's starting to pick up all this national interest, and it's going to be really hard to pull this guy in. But it looks like Washington is still firmly in the mix for him. He is taking an official visit on May 11th. And it goes back to everything you said in the first segment, where it's just all about this positional value. And building in the trenches is going to be so extremely important going into the Big Ten. And Josiah Sharma is just an awesome, big, projectable body. He's, starting to get the hang of himself as a pass rusher. When you watch his film, you see all the makings of what could be a good pass rusher at the next level, just from the interior. And, obviously you're not looking for perfection at the high school level, but it's everything that you want to see in a college pass rusher from the interior is there on his film. It's just a matter of finding a way to secure his commitment, which is not going to be easy.
Right, exactly. I mean, I think it's identifying the type of body you want on the interior, and then kind of going and finding them, right? Seeing who is the closest that you can get to that. And again, I think that gets back to what Jedd Fisch said, right? Whereas we're going to go across the country to find who we need. We prefer California. We would prefer Arizona, Utah, maybe Texas, the Midwest, and things like that. But if the talent isn't there, you're not just going to go find some 2 or 3-star offensive or defensive lineman and say, well, it was a down year of the class, but we still had to take somebody. It's like, no, it's why you get paid millions and millions of dollars to go find them. Like, yes, you can supplant them in the portal, but you can't just lean on the portal for everything, especially linemen, because that's one where you need year in and year out development. You don't want to just be thinking, hey, we're going to, every couple of years, we're going to go in the portal and try and find a starter. It's like, well, what happens if he gets hurt or doesn't work out? Clearly, you don't have much depth behind him that you believe in. So sticking on the defensive side, I was a little hesitant to rotate these two, but I think I'm going to rotate them for realistic reasons. So my number 2, as you mentioned before the show, safety Anquon Fegans. The reason why he's at number 2 is because, again, he is taking an official visit to Washington. He does have legitimate interest in Washington. Do I think they get him? Right now, no. Right now, no. Right now, I'm going to hedge the bet and say right now, no. But getting him on campus could change things, and maybe Georgia or Clemson takes a different guy, and just whatever you want to call it, and Fegans warms up to Washington all the way and things like that. But regardless, at that safety position, you have to get a home run hitter. You have to kind of get that guy. And when you look at the 24 class, I know you're going to talk about one of your guys, but going and getting a kid from the state of Alabama, I mean, it does take a little bit of luck, right? I mean, the luck of the Irish is going to have to be real on that one.
There we go.
You're welcome. I was trying to figure that one out.
That was fantastic. I love that.
But in reality, it's like, again, quintessential talent that you absolutely would take. Just trying to get him from Alabama, I'm not sure that's going to work. But in terms of when we're talking top 5, who we want to get, who they should get, who would be a home run get, Fegans is number 2 because of the guy that number 1 is more likely to commit, but still as important in terms of a positional need.
So I left Anquon Fegans out of my top 5. And it's mainly because of the regional thing where, I fully expect them to end up getting a couple guys on the West Coast. And it's not to say that it wouldn't be incredible if the staff can get Anquon Fegans to commit, because that's 100% true. I wanted to go more of that local route where it's, I can see them getting, the kid from Hawaii or just a couple other players that they've offered. I really like Tristan Castro down at Upland High School. I think there are a couple players in that realm that just seem to be, I just want to use the term a little more gettable, because the competition for Fegans is going to be so fierce that, and I'm not saying that the staff can't pull it off, because they 100% can. And, shout out to Vinny Sunseri, who learned how to recruit and did everything in Alabama for a little while. So it's not like they wouldn't be able to pull it off. I just wanted to go with more, all right, these are some realistic gets. So at number 2, I have Matata Goai from San Clemente High School in California, the safety linebacker, whatever it is you want to call him. He would fit so well in Steve Belichick's defense, where he can play a little bit of both. I really do want to see him get up to, 220, 225 by the time he's a huge contributor at the college level, which is tough. And that's going to take a while to do, but that's what I want to see from him, because he can do so many different things at the college level that I just love his film. I love his first step, his explosiveness. It's all there. The pieces of a future star at either linebacker or safety or both. I don't want to call him Isaiah Simmons, because I don't think it's that. I would kind of have him play as a true linebacker more than anything else, but he can just do so many different things that he had to be on my list.
Yeah, I mean, I know I comped Fegans to Shaq Thompson, but also that works the same thing for Manti, because if you think about it, Shaq was a safety, athlete, linebacker, played more linebacker than safety at Washington. But again, can still be that big hitter, drop back, do whatever. And the point to both of our points in this is, one of those two, whoever you get at safety, linebacker in that position, it's going to be in that top 4-star, top 150, even higher kind of mold, where it's like, hey, we're going to take multiple players at that position, but we really need a headliner here that we can just say, hey, no matter what, this guy's probably going to come in and play as a freshman, or certainly a redshirt freshman, right? No doubt he's going to play with a lot within the first couple of years of the program, which to me gets to number 1.
I'm sure we have the same number 1 here.
Which gets back to number, I believe, 4 on my list, which is Dijon Lee, the quarterback out of Mission Viejo High School. Teammate of Phillip Bell, 4-star wide receiver. And it's that combination of, it's Mission Viejo, it's 2 4-stars, it's on the West Coast, and it's at 2 positions of absolute skill need, where you look long-term. Again, you have Curly Reed, all great. All that's great. But in order to continue to build under John Richardson, I mean, you just think John Richardson and Dijon Lee, it's just cooking perfection, right? It's just, you can imagine what success is going to look like with that secondary. And so getting Dijon Lee, I think, especially given that had Arizona as top 6 with Washington, already had the relationship with John Richardson and the staff. It's like, if Washington doesn't get Dijon Lee, I would really like to know why.
So I really like where you're going with this, and I want to add on to it, because Dijon Lee is my number 1 as well. And one of the most important things that you talk about when you reference Curly Reed is stacking classes. And that's something where we were really impressed with the 2024 class that Kalen DeBoer put together. And obviously a bunch of it is no longer around after the coaching change. But one thing that helped fuel this national championship run in 2019 and 2020 was stacking classes. And that's something that Kalen DeBoer, obviously with only 2 seasons, wasn't really truly able to do. And Jimmy Lake 100% didn't do that, but Chris Peterson did towards the end, and it helped fuel this run. So being able to stack a Dijon Lee on top of the guys that we talk about ad nauseum, the redshirt freshman cornerback, so we don't have to list out all their names like we always do. I'm sure the everydayers are like, yeah, we know you like those guys. We get it. So I just think that stacking classes is incredibly important. And with John Richardson being so impressive as a developer already, being able to do that with Dijon Lee, who is the perfect prototype for what he wants to run defensively, listed at 6'4", 190. I'm sure, they usually add an extra inch and a half or so. It's probably 6'2" and a half, 6'3", but still a super long, super productive corner who's going to thrive in press man. Think of him as what Ephesians Prasak is going to do in Steve Belichick's scheme this season. And he would be such a perfect fit for this defense in so many ways, and just such a great fit for this coaching staff that he's far and away the most important recruit that Washington needs to get.
Yeah, without question. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, everything that's building in this class, Dijon Lee would also be the perfect building block even in the summer, just to get those guys in the boat and be like, hey, now we got a recruiter going down there in the fall with Phillip Bell and saying, hey, you know what, guys, Washington, you should really think about that. And the more you get those California kids to think about it, the more it's going to help John Richardson and just staff to just make their lives a little easier on the recruiting trail.
Absolutely. Lars, with that being said, let's talk a little bit about Michael Penix, who might need a little bit of some luck in the NFL draft. Right after we send a message to our good friends over at LinkedIn, because when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has all the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. Just like Troy Dannon, who is currently still looking for a head basketball coach, probably going to take a week or two. And, hey, maybe he'll find the right guy on LinkedIn. You never know, because LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. Gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all that while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. That's why LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to help make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. You can post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockdowncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockdowncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So, Lars, I said Michael Penix might need a little bit of luck in the NFL draft, and it's to no fault of his own. We know how good Michael Penix is. Thank you. Hold your applause. But we know how talented Michael Penix is. He did everything in his power at the NFL Combine to help boost his stock. But after the Vikings made a trade for the 23rd overall pick, it seems like they're trying to move into the top 5, top 6 picks to take a quarterback. And there's a growing likelihood that we could see 4 quarterbacks off the board in the top 6 picks. And I think that this would be the best case scenario for Michael Penix, because when you look at that, if let's just say I'm going to say this is the best case scenario as for myself, a Patriots fan. In the first 6 picks, we see Caleb Williams go number 1 because that's a lock now. We see Jaden Daniels go 2nd. We see Drake May go 3rd, and we see, let's just call it 6th. Let's say JJ McCarthy goes 6th. I think Michael Penix could come off the board by number 12 overall, because Sean Payton's in need of a quarterback. I think there are a lot of teams in the first round that are going to try to get somebody. I mean, if we see 6 first-round quarterbacks at this point, that would be unprecedented. It would be insane. But again, that's also just the best case scenario, and why I wanted to say it might be a little bit lucky, because the NFL has really been pumping up this quarterback class. So if we see some of these guys go earlier than expected, JJ McCarthy being the big one, where if he goes in the top 10, I'll reserve my thoughts on that. I know we talked about that on a show a couple weeks ago, as the Everydayers know. But if that happens, Michael Penix could hear his name called a lot earlier than it was being talked about a month and a half ago.
Right. And I think that was, again, it's why we love draft season, right? Because there's certain weeks where it's okay, clearly it's dead content. So it's like, hey, is Michael Penix falling? Is this though? It's like, no. When you turn the tape on and you watch and talk to the kid, there's no way he falls. Now, again, I understand the medical side of things, but from all indications, he's checked every medical box. There's no teams that are thinking. That's the one thing we haven't heard about Penix is, teams are concerned about the medical. Teams are concerned about. Well, no, because that was 3, 4, or 5 years ago now. Like, he proved that he could play for 2 full seasons at Washington. And I think it just comes down to which team is. In a way, Lamar Jackson, it's a different comp, right? But
Yeah, sure.
Quarterbacks that go later in the first round end up trying, kind of going into a better situation, right? So if he does end up in Minnesota or does end up with Sean Payton in Denver, it's like, okay, that's honestly better than if he was Caleb Williams going number 1 to Chicago or,
I like that fit a lot now. Shout out to them for picking up Keenan Allen.
I was going to say now, yeah, it's a lot different, but I'm just saying the whole, or honestly, the number 2 overall pick, right? Going to the Commanders.
Sure. Yeah, going to Washington. Yeah.
Right, exactly. That would be kind of rough. But getting Penix into a good situation with a great coach and even just a decent offensive line, it doesn't have to be a world-class offensive line. It just has to be decent, right? And I think when you look at those teams, 10, 12 through about 22, they all kind of check that similar box where they're not all great, but you're not inheriting a situation where, wow, now we see why you're going number 1 overall because not a lot to work with here.
So that's why I really like the fit of him going to Atlanta for a while. I'm just really hoping he could find a way to bump his stock up into the top 10. Then, of course, they go out and sign Kirk Cousins. So that's not happening. But I just there's so many fits when I look around and I just say, okay, I could see this working. One that's starting to grow on me is the Las Vegas Raiders at number 13, where they've done a good job identifying some needs. Yeah, they went out and brought in Gardner Minshew, who can be a little bit of a stopgap. They still have Aiden O'Connell, but neither of those guys are long-term, like franchise caliber options at this point. So if you want to take the risk on Michael Penix, the offensive line is okay. It's getting better, but they still have Devontae Adams. They paid Jacoby Myers. Michael Mayer's a decent option at tight end. And, you find a running back. You maybe take Roger Rosegarden or somebody in the 3rd round. You can find a way to make that work. All of a sudden, you're looking a lot better. And I just think that's one fit that's really fun. I know I threw out Denver. It's not necessarily my favorite fit for him personally, but that's something where I think he can excel in that offense. If Minnesota doesn't end up trading up, I love the thought of him with Kevin O'Connell. I think that would be a lot of fun, where he's the kind of guy who could push the ball down the field really well and get Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson all really, really involved. And shout out to Pro Football Focus, who Trevor Sikkema over there put out his quarterback superlatives and named Michael Penix the best thrower outside the numbers. I think that's the offense where he'd be able to really excel in that. But I think he could do that in Las Vegas as well, where, they kind of, with Jimmy Garoppolo, they didn't necessarily take a ton of deep shots, and adding Michael Penix to that fold, I think him and Devontae Adams would work so well together.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm just thinking how Rome and Penix cook so easily. It'd be the same thing with Devontae Adams, where you have an insanely skillful receiver that can break off a route. And I think that's kind of the offset is when you look, if you have enough weapons, you don't need a great line because Penix is going to get, aside from the slow delivery, which I don't really fully buy, but I think he'll be able to work on that when he gets to the league and kind of,
sure,
find a quicker release. But I think with that being said, the more talent you have around him, that's the one thing Penix was able to do. Fit the ball in the tight windows and find the open receiver. And really, if either of those two aren't there, throw somebody open. And now, again, he has to have enough time to do that. But I do think that line there is serviceable enough. And they probably could, to your point, maybe get a couple extra guys in the draft or free agency or whatever you want to call it, and kind of just build it around. I mean, I still think without question, though, Penix is going to go in the 1st round. It's just about where is his best fit. I mean, for a while there, I thought Tampa until Baker Mayfield cashed in. Your point about Atlanta, Kevin O'Connell, there's so many. But the other thing is, it's not, again, for me, I think we both agree on this, where Penix doesn't need to sit, right? He doesn't need to come in, learn the offense, because he's actually a pretty veteran quarterback at the age. So it's a matter of, where is his best fit, both scheme-wise, coaching-wise, and then roster-wise? Because I think we've seen NFL teams where it's like, look at Brock Purdy going in the 7th round. If you can put enough skill players around him and you have the right coaching, you can hit a home run for the first 3 or 4 years. It's just a matter of, can you collect all that talent like San Francisco has? And that's why I look at Denver, Minnesota. There's a couple other spots where it'll be intriguing to see who opens up some spots before the draft in April.
Right. And that's one thing where Denver, I'm not so sure about the talent around him, where they traded Jerry Jeudy. We'll see what happens with Courtland Sutton. But I think that working with Sean Payton would be a really nice thing for him. And then you can find other ways to address that and just kind of see what happens. But another team that where this is something where you talked about him not, sitting around, but one team that I heard talked about, and this isn't necessarily anything that I believe is going to happen, but somebody brought up the New York Jets, where we'll see what happens with Aaron Rodgers, of course, where it probably got 1, maybe 2 more seasons. But if the New York Jets decide to take Penix at some point, maybe not in the first round, or maybe they trade back up to do that and just kind of have him sit behind Rodgers for a year, I don't necessarily hate that with some of the skill players that they have. That offensive line has definitely been rebuilt and looks a lot better after some injuries last season. But that was a fit that I heard that, and I was like, oh, I don't hate that as much as I thought I would. And as a Patriots fan, like I said earlier, that part I dislike, but I think that would be a really interesting fit of working with Breece Hall, one of probably 5-10 best running backs in the league, getting Garrett Wilson. But I don't know. That was something that piqued my interest, where that's a situation where I think it'd be okay for him to sit for a year. And with the skill talent around him, that might work out.
Yeah, it's definitely a solid dark horse. I mean, because again, AR is not going to stay on more than a year or two, right? Regardless of health or anything. I think it's just long term. And again, for the right quarterback, Penix is easily going to sit. Like, in terms of if you have it's not going to happen, but if you have like Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, somebody ahead of him, where it's like, okay, I can Baker Mayfield maybe on the lower end, where it's like, okay, I could see you wanted to cook with him for a little bit, but you're still hedging your bet long term. But
before they traded for Sam Howell.
Sam Howell, that to me doesn't matter. You can still draft. Seattle could draft Michael Penix right now, because for various reasons you can either cut. I mean, that's why I didn't mention it, because I think you're probably passing on him and taking some other Huskies. But yeah, I can see Ryan Grubb considering it. I just don't think that it would mean you would have to really move on from Geno, which I don't think they're going to do. Bringing in Sam Howell as a backup. I mean, there's nothing that wows me about Sam Howell. Like, oh, he's guaranteed to not. Get beat out by anybody. But I think when you have two quarterbacks like that, you don't need to put another third in the first round. That's the other thing. That's what
it is. Yeah.
If this is a 4th round pick for Penix, then this is a completely different argument. Sure. But he's not falling that 100%. Far. Let's be real here.
No, absolutely. And that's kind of why I just wanted to throw the Seahawks caveat in there on the back end, where probably not going to happen after all that, but it would just be fun, because that's exactly like before they traded for Sam Howell, that would have been such a great fit with the talent around him, with the offensive line that they're building. Maybe let's see if the Troy Fautano can fall to 16. That'd be fun. But just when you look at a couple of those things, it's okay. Yeah, that would have made sense. Now it probably doesn't, which is unfortunate, because that would have been just a fun fit for so many reasons, like you talked about with Ryan Grubb and just being able to stay in the city of Seattle. But with the draft over a month away, we're still going to have so much time to talk about it. And, with that being said, make sure you keep it right here for all that draft content on Locked On Huskies. And as always, Lars, thank you so much for being here. Thank you to all the everydayers for tuning in. We really do appreciate your support, because we've got so much more fun stuff coming your way throughout the offseason. And hey, spring football starts in a couple of weeks, so make sure you stay tuned in for that as well. And the best way to do that is make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. We're there. We're everywhere. We're updating this channel with new content every single day, so please make sure you hit that like button, comment, subscribe, and if you're audio only, please leave us a 5-star review, as it all really does help the show out a lot. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will talk to you on Tuesday.